And so you keep on driving.
Well, as I got closer to them, I'd stopped and let them approach me. I'd stopped in front of them and let them walk up towards me.
But you're still in the car?
Yes, I never even put the car in park. I didn't drive. And as they walked up, I'd asked Dorian Johnson, who was the first one, to walk on the sidewalk. And his reply was, well, we're almost to our destination. And I was like, okay, well, what's wrong with the sidewalk? And then as he passed, he just kept walking, ignoring that, is when Michael Brown came next. And he had exchanged some explicit words with me.
What does that mean?
Can I say it?
Go ahead.
He had said, you have to say.
First words to you?
Yes.
Still in the middle of the street?
Yes.
What do you do then?
Well, when he said that, it immediately drew my attention to him, and it kind of took me aback, because I was like, why would someone have such an aggressive response to just a simple request? And when I looked at him, you know, as law enforcement, we're always trained to look at people's hands. The hands are what will hurt you. And I noticed that his right hand was full of cigarillos. And it kind of all clicked then. You know, the call I'd heard, I was in the vicinity of where they were going. Cigarillos were in his hand. Dorian Johnson was wearing a black shirt. And that's when it hit me that these were the suspects from that stealing.
And he was aggressive in his manner.
Yes.
You say cigarillos in his hand. Did you have any sense that he might be armed?
I did not know. I had no idea. I hadn't heard anything of a weapon, but again, you never know. You know, after I realized all this is when I put all of it together, and I got on the radio and I asked for assistance because I was going to be on Canfield, which is a street we were on, with two suspects.
So what do you say exactly to the radio?
I'm on Canfield with two, send me another car.
And you're thinking, when you say send me another car, you're expecting then what's going to happen? How long is it going to take?
Maybe 30, 40 seconds, and there's going to be at least one, probably two cars show up.
But right now, you've put in the call. Michael Brown's still in the middle of the street.
Yes.
What happens next?
I backed up because they kept walking, ignored everything I had said.
You're still in the car?
I'm still in the car. I then put the car in reverse, and I backed up just past them and kind of blocked the street and them off. And
so you're kind of in the middle of the street like this?
Yeah, it was like the street's this way and my car was angled that way.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of blocked them from escaping, and it just kind of provided a little security for everybody. I'd gone to open the door and get out of the car. And when I did so, as I was opening the door, I said, hey, come here for a minute. And that's when he turned and said, what the f*** are you going to do about it? And slammed my door shut on me.
Slam the door shut?
Yes.
So you're trying to get out. He slams the door shut?
Yes.
And?
Again, taken aback because I've never been trapped in my car. I used my door to try and push him back and yell at him to get back. And again, he just pushed the door shut and just stares at me.
So you're staring each other down?
Yeah, he stares at me and he's like almost over top of me. You know, he looked like he was trying to intimidate me. And as I look back at him, all of a sudden, punches start flying.
He threw the first punch?
Yes. He threw the first one and hit me in the left side of my face.
Because, you know, some of the witnesses have said that they saw you trying to pull him into the car.
That would be against every training ever taught to any law enforcement officer.
Didn't happen?
No, it did not.
He punched you, and did he land a punch?
Yes, he did. The first one that he hit me in this side of the face, right in this area. And then I don't know what or how many hit me after that. I just know there was a barrage of swinging and grabbing and pulling for about 10 seconds.
One of those individuals at the time, came into as the officer was exiting his police car, allegedly pushed the police officer back into the car, where he physically assaulted the police officer.
Tiffany, is that what you saw?
No, I didn't see the initial whenever they pulled up on whenever the cop pulled up to them, but what I saw was Michael trying to pull away from the cop through the window.
And could you see if the police officer was touching Michael when he was trying to pull away?
Yes, he was. He was pulling him in.
And so he was trying to, what you saw was the police officer trying to pull Michael into the car?
Yes.
Did Michael's body stay out of the car the whole time?
Yes.
So, Tiffany, could you see Michael's hands when the first shot was fired?
Yeah, they were up against the SUV pulling away.
So you saw his hands outside of the car when the first shot was fired?
Yes.
And at that time, he reached out the window. He didn't get out the car. He just reached his arm out the window and grabbed my friend around his neck and was trying to, as he was trying to choke my friend, and he was trying to get away, and the officer then reached out and he grabbed his arm to pull him into the car. So now it's like the officer's pulling him inside the car and he's trying to pull away.
At that time, I was just blocking my face. I mean, my hands had gone up and it was just protection. And then, you know, he stopped, he just stopped suddenly. And when he stopped, I looked up and he's standing, if my car is here, he's standing right on my left, my left side. And he takes his hand and he goes like this to hand something back.
That's his left hand?
Yes.
And what was in his hand?
The cigarillos.
And he handed them to Dorian Johnson?
I couldn't actually. Johnson, but that's the only other person who was in the area. He was out of my view, and Michael Brown was actually blocking some of that view, but I'm assuming, yes, it was Dorian Johnson.
So you think he'd been hitting you with his right hand and holding the cigarillos in his left hand?
I think he was hitting me with his right with the cigarillos at first, and then switched it at some point to his left, and then handed them off.
And then what?
When he'd done that, I had reached out my window of my right hand to grab onto his forearm because I was going to try and move him back and get out of the car to where I'm no longer trapped.
That's his right forearm?
Yes, his right forearm. And when I felt it, I just felt the immense power that he had. I mean, the way I've described it is it was like a 5-year-old holding on to Hulk Hogan. That's just how big this man was.
Hulk Hogan?
He was very large. Very powerful man.
You're a pretty big guy.
Yeah, I'm above average. Yeah, I'm above average.
So you try to grab him, but you feel that force?
Yes. And then as I'm holding him, I see him coming back around with his left hand, and it's in the shape like this, and it comes in through the window and just a solid punch to the right side of my face.
So you're still sitting there figuring out, how do I get out of it?
With me now, HLN's Nancy Grace. And Nancy, thank you for coming on. I just want to begin. There's a lot we can talk about. Was there any one thing you were waiting to hear from Officer Wilson that he just didn't say?
Yes. You know, when people say it just doesn't add up, I'll tell you what doesn't add up. These photos. Because I was expecting to see, and we've all seen them, I've looked at them, I have studied them. I was expecting to see his face mangled. And I hear what he's saying, that he was afraid and this happened and that happened. But I always go back to the beginning, and the beginning is this. You got an armed man and an unarmed man. The unarmed man is shot 6 to 7 times. One of those may be a reentry. That's why it may say it may be 6. 6 to 7 times. He unloaded many, many more bullets. Why? He doesn't even have a bruise. Right? It's red. He's got a red mark. I don't see it. And another thing.
Yes. I mean, the next thing was, how do I survive? Because I didn't know
How
if
do
I
you survive?
Yes, I didn't know if I'd be able to withstand another hit like that. I mean, you hear all the time, one punch and someone gets knocked out, and if I'm knocked out, then what happens to me? Because then I can't defend myself at all. So that was my fear, is if he hits me again, will I be conscious after that hit to still defend myself?
So that's what you're thinking at that moment. I can't get hit again.
Yes.
And what do you do?
I actually went through my progression of how do I get out of this? What do I do? What's my force that I'm allowed to do? And my training just overrode everything you could ever think. I mean, training just kicked in.
What does your training do at that moment?
At first, I went to mace. You know, that's our next step up, is, you know, some kind of chemical agent. And my mace is on my left side. But if I would have used that, it would have not only disabled him if it got to him through both our sets of hands, but it would have disabled me. I've been maced before, like when I was in the police academy. And it completely disables me. I can't see it. With the contact, I mean, there's literally 4 hours of no vision for me.
So you go through the checklist, the mental checklist, you rule out mace.
Yes.
This is all happening in a split second.
Yes. I don't have a taser, so that was never even an option.
Why no taser?
I never carried a taser. They're very uncomfortable, bulky, large, not really a convenient spot to put one. And we're not assigned tasers. It's just your option if you want one, and I've just never elected to carry one.
And then what else can you do?
Well, I have an ASP baton. It's an expandable baton that I carry back here behind me. And when I thought about that, I'm like, well, how am I going to get it out without sacrificing this whole side of my face again? And even if I do get it out, how am I going to expand it inside the car? You know, it's not, we drive Tahoes, which people think they're big cars, but when you put all the police equipment in, you're really kind of cramped in there. And we have a cage that stops at the back, so nothing's open behind me. There's a center console.
So how much room do you have to move here?
This is about it. I mean, I can twist like this and I can twist like this. I don't have room to
And he's right there,
Yes.
looking down on you.
Yes. At some point he was actually in the car physically. Like he had ducked his head and came into the vehicle with me.
Okay, so you rule out the mace, you rule out the ASP, that leaves.
Well, I have a flashlight that I carry in my bag. But again, how am I going to swing an object that would deliver any type of effective strike to someone in that confined space? So I had to rule that out too. And the only option I left was my firearm. So I withdrew my firearm and I
Where's
pointed it up.
your gun at that point?
I keep it on my right hip.
Mm-hmm.
I take it out and I come up, I point it at him.
So you're no longer holding on to his arm with your
No,
right
my
hand.
left hand is now blocking my face and I'm now getting my firearm with my right.
Okay, so show us exactly what you did.
I was like this and I brought my gun up like that. And when I said, get back or I'm going to shoot you. And then his response, immediately, he grabbed the top of my gun. And when he grabbed it, he said, "You're too much of a to shoot me." And when he did that, he had twisted it and put it down into my hip and had the barrel dug into the crease of in my left hip. And while he's doing that, I can feel his hand trying to come over my hand and get inside the trigger guard and try and shoot me with my own gun.
Just got shots fired. Subject is down. You grab my taser.
And at that point, I envisioned a bullet going into my leg. I thought that was the next
So
thing.
both your hands are on the gun at that point?
Yes. This hand's trying to just get it back, and my right hand was on like the pistol.
And his
grip.
hand's over yours?
Yes, it was over top.
What do you do?
I had managed to wiggle, only a couple inches. I just slide over just slightly, and the force of him pushing down actually slid off the side of my leg, and when it slid off, it's now pointed down the floorboard. Well, I didn't have enough strength to pull the gun up, and with just one hand, I couldn't maneuver it. So I took my left elbow and locked it into the back of my seat, and I just pushed as hard as I could like this with both my arms. And I ended up getting it to slide up my leg towards my knee, and when it got to, fully outreached, I noticed it was lined up with the silhouette of his body, and that's when I pulled the trigger for the first time.
What happened?
It didn't go off. The gun was actually being jammed by his hand on top of the firearm. I believe his finger was blocking the hammer from striking the slide.
So you just get a click?
Just a click. So I tried again, and again another click. And this time I'm like, this has to work, otherwise I'm going to be dead. He's going to get this gun away from me. Something's going to happen, and I'm going to be dead. So I pull a third time, and it finally goes off.
Where does it go?
It actually went through the door. Found out later it didn't actually go all the way through the door, but it went into the door.
At no time the officer said that he was going to do anything until he pulled out his weapon. His weapon was drawn, and he said, "I'll shoot you," or "I'm going to shoot." And in the same moment, the first shot went off. And we looked at him. He was shot, and there was blood coming from him.
And when it went into the door, my window had been rolled down. So the glass from the window then exploded out. From the door. And when it exploded, I just remember seeing a big chunk of glass come over my hand, and I see blood on my hand. And I didn't know what it was from originally. Later I found out it was actually his blood because I wasn't cut.
It is our understanding at this point in the investigation that within the police car there was a struggle over the officer's weapon. There was at least one shot fired within the car.
Tiffany, did you see anything that could have been a struggle over the officer's weapon?
No.
Because you just said that every time when you were looking at it, Michael's hands were outside of the car.
Yes.
Did you hear anything said by Michael or the police officer?
No, not at all. Don't these guys supposed to have like dashboard cams on their vehicles or something like that?
Well, if they apparently not, but if they did have a dashboard cam, it wouldn't be aimed out the side of the car probably. So we don't have any
It would
help.
have heard what was going on.
Yeah, it would have heard. That's right. Would have picked up the sound.
But after the glass flies over, I look at him, and he kind of backs up about 6 inches to a foot. And it kind of startled both of us.
That was the first time you'd ever used your gun, right?
Yes, it was.
In all your years as a police officer?
Yes.
What were you thinking?
We were both in shock. That's all. I mean, it was shocking having to pull it, but it was also at the same time it was shocking that this was the only option I had. Because if I didn't act that way, I wouldn't be sitting right here.
And then what happens?
After I look at him, he's kind of shocked. He gets even angrier. His aggression, his face, the intensity just increases. And he comes back in at me again. And when he comes back in, I just block my face again, and I put my gun up and try to shoot. Well, it doesn't shoot that time either. Now it's jammed again from all the previous interaction with it. So after I take the first hit, I put my hand down, I blindly rack the gun, which is I take my hand on top of the slide and I just bring one back, it ejects around. Again, training just kicked in. I never even thought about it. That's just, your gun jams, you rack it, you get a new round in there. And when I did that, I wasn't looking at him, I was just like, rack it, expecting another hit, and I put my gun up and fired. And after I fired that shot, I look over, he's running.
It went off that time.
It did go off that time. He starts to run, and I see the dust cloud behind him, and I'm like, okay, I missed. That was, the round didn't hit him. Then I go to exit my car. And when I'm getting out, I use my walkie and I say, shots fired, send more cars. And I start chasing after Michael Brown.
You sent that radio message, shots fired, send no cars, but nobody got it.
No.
How come?
Found out later my radio during all the altercation, which was down on the side, which is where my portable radios kept, the channel was changed from 1 to 3.
That moment before the second shot, you guys are staring at each other, and you said there was a look in his eye like something you'd never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
You described it as a demon.
Mm-hmm. It was a very, very intense image he was presenting.
Demon?
Very intense.
And what did you think was going on in his mind, and why did you choose the word demon?
I don't really know what was going on in his mind. I was so shocked by the whole interaction because this was escalated so quickly from a simple request to now a fight for survival.
And you're staring at each other, you see this demon.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think he was going to do?
I was prepared for the worst. I mean, I thought when he came back at me, I thought he's just going to punch me until I'm dead or take my gun and shoot me with it. He's already tried it once.
Your gun goes off the second time, and he then does run away.
Yes, he does.
How far does he go?
I don't know. I mean, around 30, 40 feet.
At that moment, you've called for help.
Yes.
Why not stay in the car? He's running away.
Because he's not, my job isn't to just sit and wait. You know, I have to see where this guy goes. My goal wasn't to arrest him. My goal was to maintain visual on him. And I was worried.
I mean, you weren't going to arrest him alone?
Not alone, no. I knew I had backup on the way. I mean, they should be there any second. And I was also worried that if I was another officer responding and I see, you know, again, I think they've heard all this, they know what's going on. If I see a guy running from another officer's car, I'm going to go get him. You know, that's going to be your first reaction is how do we catch him? Well, the way Canfield's set up is there's 2 loops. So where I'm at, there's a loop that goes around and he's running like towards that loop. So the first responding officer is going to go that way and try and cut him off. Well, what's he going to do to them?
So you felt it was your duty to give chase.
Yes, it was. That's what we were trained to do.
And he runs out of the car, gets about 30 or 40 feet. You can now get out of the car. You start to follow him. And then he stops.
He does stop.
Why?
I thought when he originally stopped, he was going to get on the ground, but he didn't. When he stopped, he turned and faced me. And the stutter step that you sometimes see, like when people start to run and they kind of did the hop and then go, he does that, and as he does that, his right hand immediately goes into his waistband, and his left hand is a fist at his side, and he starts charging me.
You that there are at least 6 bullet wounds. In fact, counting. St. Louis says there might be up to 8. But let's go with the number 6 that most people agreed to, including Dr. Michael Baden, who did the private autopsy. And 4 of them entered his right arm, as you can see there, and 2 of the bullets entered his head. And so now let's go to Dr. Baden, who, by the way, is one of the most respected.
Right hand in his waistband?
Yes.
It's kind of an odd thing for someone running to do, right? What did you think when you saw that?
I didn't know. My initial thought was, is there a weapon in there? Is there a knife? Is there a brick? What's in there? Why is your hand going there? The unknown of what is there.
Even though he hadn't pulled something out earlier when he was confronting you.
It was still just the unknown. And again, we're taught to let me see your hands.
As you know, some of the eyewitnesses have said when at that moment when he turned around and put his hands up.
That would be incorrect.
He shot again, and once my friend felt that shot, he turned around and he put his hands in the earth, and he started to get down, but the officer still approached with his weapon drawn, and he fired several more shots.
The cop follows him and kept shooting, and the kid body jerked as if he was hit. And after his body jerk, he turned around, he puts his hands up, and the cop just continues to walk up on him and shoot him until he goes all the way down.
Of the shooting. The man on the left in the pink shirt told CNN they heard one gunshot. Then, about 30 seconds later, a second shot. He says he saw Michael Brown staggering. Then he says Brown put his hands up and said, "Okay, okay, okay." The witness told us the cop didn't say get on the ground, he just kept shooting. That same witness described the gruesome scene, saying he saw Michael Brown's brains come out of his head, again reiterating his hands were up. Watch how he motions on the video.